Okay, good day everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening because I don't know when will you be visiting this video presentation. And this afternoon, as part of understanding purposive communication, I have prepared this slide for us to study this particular time. So we'll be studying what about language in the whole gamut of communication. Okay, that is based in our book, chapter 3. So, just would like to say I'm back. Gamut would mean it's the entire range or series. So, our objectives number one is to determine culturally appropriate terms, expressions, and images, sensitivity to gender, race, class, etc., and adopt cultural and intercultural awareness and sensitivity in communication of ideas. So these are the two objectives that we're going to cover at this particular class. So language. Language was mentioned several times in the preceding chapter as an indispensable tool in communication. So it's really an important tool, okay, the language that we are using to convey, to persuade, to inform other people about the thoughts we have and the things we want to do. Moreover, it was even described as something that is directly connected to culture, so much so that one cannot be understood without the other. So we believe that without the language one has, we cannot understand them. Of course, even we can understand them with the use of non-verbal communication. So let us then break down language in terms of register. Okay, the first one is what we call the formal register. So there are three common language register, by the way. So the formal, the informal, and the neutral. So let's first deal with the formal register. Like for example, this means that we talk to them this way. So when we get a chance to talk to somebody in authority, like a doctor or lawyer, we normally use the formal register with them. Let's take a look with this conversation. So for example, you'll be telling, doctor, may I know when is the best time to visit your clinic for a thorough examination of my abdomen? So the doctor will say, every Sunday at around 9 in the morning is always a good time for a thorough checkup. Then you'll be saying as a response, I appreciate the information, doctor. I will report to your clinic this Saturday then, or Sunday. So for the formal register, this is really very appropriate for professional writing and letters, especially to our boss, especially when we are meeting for the first time. Formal writing as well is also probably the most challenging type of writing that requires the formal register. So this is being said that it is impersonal and unemotional. So there is no feelings attached when you communicate. So as college student, this is the language register required of you when you need to write a letter to your teacher. Much more if you are communicating through a letter to the president of the university in behalf of a school organization. Okay, formal writing includes the business letters, letters of complaint, reports, official speeches, announcements. So I'm very sure that you have the learned or you have seen some of those projected here in the 5 bullets. Okay, and as well as professional email messages. So in using the formal language register, the following are to be observed. Okay, we're still in the formal language. So the first one is do not use contractions. Contractions are not usually used in formal writing, even though it is very common in spoken English. So let's have the examples to better understand this first thing to observe in formal language. Okay, like for example, instead of using won't, you're going to use will not. Instead of using haven't, you should spell it out, have not. Instead of using shouldn't, it should be should not. And instead of using couldn't, you should use could not. So that is the first thing to observe. Do not use contractions. So however, contractions can be used if you are quoting someone's exact words in writing. So we can use contractions when that particular word is part of the exact word or exact words being used or being said by the writer, the professional, or anyone. For example, we shouldn't put a premium to plainly verbal communication, the professor said. Okay, in that way, you should include the contracted word. What's the contracted word? Shouldn't. And for apostrophes, keep in mind that it does not pertain to a contraction. Okay, by using apostrophes, it's not all the same with contractions. Okay, like for example, and actually apostrophes are added to nouns. That is to nouns to express ownership. Okay, example, we have the teacher's profile, the manager's report, mother's womb. Okay, of course, fathers don't have their womb, but only mothers. Okay, so that is to express ownership. Okay, the second one that we need to observe, spell out numbers less than 100. I'll repeat, spell out numbers less than 100. So what are these? Like for examples, 19, 29, 65. So I'm very sure that that is very basic, right? So any number less than 100, you should spell it out, okay? And for number 3, we should avoid using too much passive voice. In formal writing, it is better to use the active voice. Okay, let's take a look at examples so that we can differentiate what's passive and what's active voice. Okay, for example, for the passive, we have the members of the organization were instructed to assemble in the conference room by the event's hosts. For the active, the event's hosts instructed the members of the organization to assemble at the conference room. Okay, so were instructed. So that's already the key, were instructed. Okay, were in the second or in the active one, the event's host instructed. Okay, so there is, what do you call that? There's the verb ahead of time, okay, because the event's host instructed. While in the passive voice, the event's host is the receiver of the action. While in the active voice, the event's host is the doer of the action, okay? So in the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action, while in the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. Okay. Another example, So let's try this. The terrorists attacked. The terrorist attacks. I'm so sorry, it should be with S. The terrorist attacks were reported. Okay, the terrorist attack was reported by CNN Live. So for the active voice, CNN reported the terror attacks live. Okay, so that's an example of from passive. So in the first example, okay, CNN, the subject was the receiver of the action, while the second bullet or the second example, the CNN now is or was the doer of the action, which is reporting. So that's the difference between passive and active voice. Okay, number 4 to consider, avoid using slang, idioms, exaggerations, and cliches. These expressions are acceptable in informal writing and spoken English. Slang in particular is only meant for a certain area or region. Like for example, examples, awesome, cool, okay, check it out, in a nutshell. Okay, so those are the examples of slang. Okay, a cliche is a phrase that is often overused. It's already a cliche, like for example, too much of a good thing, moment of truth, last but not the least, as far as I am concerned, in my opinion. Okay, so these are the examples of expressions or words or phrase under cliche. So we will be avoiding that in using the formal language. So number 5 is avoid abbreviations and acronyms. So what do we consider here? So if you have to use an acronym, write it out the first time. Okay, from then on, you can use the acronym itself. So what does it mean by that? So like for example, we have here the NASA. Okay, in the first paragraph of your essay or paragraph or letter, you should be stating there the acronym for NASA. So it's National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Like NELA, North Eastern Adventist College, or MTRCB, Movie and Television Review and Classification. So the preceding paragraph or your preceding sentences, you can now use the acronym. Okay, so at the first part, you should present the whole acronym of that particular word that you have used. And then the preceding or the next sentences, the next paragraph, you can now use the acronym NASA, NELAC, MTRCB in its congested style or congested acronym. Okay, how about for abbreviations? So for abbreviations, write the complete word for the first time, then abbreviations are in order. Okay, like what I've said a while back, it is also through with using abbreviations like the acronym. Okay, like for example, you have the influenza, so it stands for flu, the tablespoon, TBSP, Manila or MLA. So that is 4 abbreviations. Another thing is the following are among those that are only for friendly email and text messages. Okay, mind you, only for friendly email and text messages like LOL, what does it mean? Laugh out loud. BRB, be right back. OMG, oh my gosh. TBD, to be determined. And TC, take care. So those are for friendly email and text messages. So that's also true with us as millennials, because I have also used this kind of texting when I have my cell phones, the first cell phones. So number 6 is formal writing requires the good transition words. Okay, good transition words are also to be observed in formal writing. Like for example, nevertheless, additionally, consequently, in fact, as a result of, however. Okay, so these are the transitions that we can use. Number 7 talks about always write in sentences. Why? Okay, because fragments are unacceptable in formal writing. Let's have examples of fragments. Before the expiration date. So what is that thing? What is that thing to expire? Although it was relayed quite well. So what was the thing being relayed? So you'll end up questioning or in hanging in the middle of an exhibition. So what is that particular event or program or person who or yes, which or who is in the middle of an exhibition? Okay, let's have the complete sentence. Okay, you must consume the product before its expiration date. Okay, that's clearer. Although it was relayed quite well, the message was still unclear to the audience. So it is the message. The third one, in the middle of an art exhibition, the artist himself opened the auction for his masterpieces. Okay? So we should not be using fragments because it left us in a question form or in a hanging way. And the number 8 to consider, write longer, more complex sentences. Like for example, as formal write-ups are usually written by well-educated individuals, complex sentences are commonly seen in them. Like for example, since Marawi City is still under siege, President Duterte was compelled to declare the extension of the martial law, which resulted to the delay of the opening of classes and an economic uncertainty in the whole city. I have also here another one. I'll just be reading it. In a 501-page document, the Hague Tribunal decided to honor the claim of the Philippines over Scarborough Shoal and said that China does not have historic rights up to the South China Sea and their 9-line claim has no legal basis. So these are the 8 things to observe in formal language register. Okay, let's now proceed to the other one. It's the informal language register. Of course, by its name alone or the title alone, it's the opposite of formal. So to young people, the informal register always works because this is the register that we use when we communicate with friends and family. So the informal register accepts slangs and cliches, figurative language, symbols and abbreviations, acronyms, incomplete sentences, short sentences, jokes, personal opinions, active and passive voice, extra punctuation. So how do we display that extra punctuation? Like when you say okay, so there are expressions like exclamation point, 5 exclamation point, okay, as long as you're going to use it. Okay, that's extra punctuation. That is good in informal register. Okay, does informal writing includes, okay, personal emails, personal, okay, not business for business emails. That's personal emails, text messages, short notes, tweets, Facebook posts, blogs, friendly letters, chat messages, diaries, and journals. Okay, so this composes the informal writing. Okay, let's now proceed to the third one, which is the neutral language register. Okay, so it is neither formal nor informal. And basically, it is the tone that is used when expressing facts devoid of emotion. I'll repeat, expressing facts devoid of emotion. So no feelings attached. Okay, other writings that use neutral register are, we have the reviews, articles, some letters, okay, not because not all letters, some essays, because not all essays, technical writing. Okay. Even the book that we're using or the books that we're using in learning, they are in the neutral language register. Okay, the language register for the linguists. So to linguists, language register, linguists would refer language register as tenor, tone, or style. Okay, so register is a variety of language dictated by a particular social setting. Example, delivering a speech to a gathering of professionals. So of course, the language that you should be using, it depends on the people whom you will deliver your speech. Of course, when you are delivering a speech for professionals, you will automatically gravitate towards the use of formal, complex sentences and do away with constructions and slang expressions. So what's the use of that? In order for you to appear respectable to a specific type of audience. But of course, when you are not with the professionals, so you can use the informal language register, like to your friends, family members, and to those who are close to you. And we have also this linguist by the name Thomas Bertram Ray. He first used the term register. As adopted by other linguists, register is defined as a variation. When I say variation, there is many scopes according to user affected by other variables like social background, geography, gender, age, and etc. So our register is being affected by variables like social background, geography, gender, and age. So register should also be distinguished from jargon or highly technical terms. Let us also consider whom we talk to. So this is the reason why some of us come off too bossy or sometimes even rude to people we talk to, even without intending to, when a particular language or type of audience is alien to us, especially when it's our first time really to encounter or to meet someone else, okay? So our tone should always be friendly. So English as a specific language. So after a thorough discussion on language register and how linguists define it, let us zoom in on language itself. In this case, the English. First, we categorize language based on accent. Okay, the first one is the American English. This is often abbreviated to AME, a variant of English language spoken mainly in US, and about 2/3 of the world's native speakers of English living in America speak this variant. And this was also introduced to North America by British settlers in the 17th century, the colonization period. The second one is the Australian English, or being abbreviated by AUE, a variant of English spoken largely in Australia. So this variant began to diverge from British English shortly after Australia was settled in the late 18th century, and it bears semblances to New Zealand English and certain dialects of Southeast England. The third one is Black English. So this refers to British and American English spoken by Black communities in the US and UK. It is also refers to a variant of English spoken widely in the Caribbean and Africa. And the last one is the British English with the abbreviated form BRE. So this is a variant of English spoken mainly in the United Kingdom. And this English variant together with American English are taught in most English as a second language or ESL and English as a foreign language EFL programs. But is there a correct variety of English? So Dr. Ursula Clarke, a linguist specialist, declares on variations in the use of English and what this could mean for education policy and teachers of English, that you are what you speak and your place of origin is the most important identity factor. So her research took place in the West Midlands region of UK and examined variations of English used in creative spoken performances such as comedy, drama, and poetry. Other texts used in local newspapers, stories, and poems were also used in the investigation. In the research, Dr. Clarke surmised that English has, over the years, been fragmented, dynamic, and mobile like never before, and that's the so-called standard. English has weakened. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines standard English as the English with respect to spelling, grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary is substantially uniform, though not devoid of regional differences, that is well established by usage in the formal and informal speech and writing of the educated, and that is widely recognized as acceptable wherever English is spoken and understood. And he even added, even though English is used around the world for the purpose of trade, travel, medicine, and so on, it is interesting fact that majority of the world's population today is largely bilingual, if not multilingual, even in nations where English is the mother tongue. In the UK, for example, it is noticeable that there are primary and secondary schools where nearly 100% of pupils speak English as an additional language. In many others, 40% is common. The implication of this, therefore, is that we can no longer say that there is one variety of English superior to the others. What is more important is that we are able to recognize the many varieties of English, including that of the standard, and pick one variety that we are comfortable with and be understood while using it. So the most important thing is that we can use the language, we can use the accent, and we can relate, okay, and we can say the things that we wanted to say. And that should also be understood by the ones whom we will talk with. Who then should teach English? So it teaches us that traditionally, the native speakers of English are to be the best English teachers in the world. This view is shared by nations like Japan and Korea that require their English teachers to come from America or any country. So if you are able to engage successfully in your given context at point in time using variety of English, then you will have fulfilled the essence of communication. Okay. Some more things to consider. So there are terms still to wrap up. The first one is social linguistics. So this is a term used to describe all areas of the study between language and society other than those which are purely social, scientific in their objectives such as ethno-methodology. In other words, social linguistics is the study of the relationship between language and society. It focuses on how language is used by the individual speaker and groups of speakers in its social context. And for purposes communication student like you can say that it is a study of how people use their language in their everyday lives, how identities are shown more vividly through the words you use, how through language you intentionally or unintentionally create, maintain, or disrupt relationship with others. So therefore, we again can conclude that language is more than what meets the eye. It is like a mirror through which we can look at social behavior. Okay, another one is there are also other areas of linguistics that we need to tackle. The first one is the pragmatics. So pragmatics focuses on how speakers utilize language to convey information. So it is very important that the speaker should use language so that his or her audience would understand him or her. So it is the choice. Pragmatics revolve around how choice of words, sentence forms, intonation, rhythm, and pitch convey subtle features of messages. It also conveys how language conveys who did what to whom, when, and how we use language. So this is another area of linguistics. So it is also for us to accomplish specific speech acts like requests, apologies, appeal, threats, among others, may bring us closer or alienate us from others. Another one is the discourse analysis. So discourse analysis focuses on the text and its context. So we look at text and context as basis of movement from the informal to the formal or vice versa, or more simply to register being used by individuals in communicating among themselves. So what we are to consider here, the first one is the cohesion. It is how words and meaning hold the text together. The second one is coherence, how unity, topic, and message are achieved. Then how text used to tell a story or describe something, explain a list of instructions. So these are the things that we consider when we have this, when we study discourse analysis. Okay, so how does concept of globalization affect social linguistic, business, and communication in general? So to put everything in perspective, language register, linguistics, social linguistics, and communication itself affect the concept of globalization. This has happened in the last 20 years as the term globalization became a household term spawned by exchange of knowledge, trade, and capital around the world, driven by technological innovation from the internet to actual shipping containers. So let us look to communication as a mover and shaker of business. After all, in a span of 3 to 4 years, you, the college student, will find yourself participating in local or world economic affairs with unemployment or self-employment on your sleeves. That's why we have this, what we call virtual interaction, especially today that we are in the midst of pandemic. So what we are to do is to have this virtual interactions, and it's very true right now. So virtual interaction has become an indispensable ingredient to workplace dynamics. So even it is not only in the workplace, but also in the lives that we are in right now. Okay. Social linguistics then weighs in on the matter. This is inevitable as culture awareness in speech impacts the whole concept of globalization. Now, the communication skills developed in the world of business has evolved to the global extent. Even when two people today speak the same language, both have to be aware that cultural differences can affect vocabulary, that colloquial expressions vary even in countries that speak the same language, and that something as simple as tone can disrupt usual business. Today, body language is also a key factor in this business. Modern training program now includes lessons on speaking distances, conflict styles, eye contact, or even postures that are universally acceptable. If you're in business and you are looking at the future importing and exporting products, you should address differences in matters of physical expressions, language, and of course, culture. It's also being said in the Bible that we should be friend with other people because the things that we are doing to our brothers and sisters or to our neighbors rather, these are also the things that we are doing to our Almighty God because we were being instructed that to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope that we have learned really many things like expressions, words, this particular time. And I hope that you will visit this video presentation. And of course, I will be sending in our GC the things that you're going to consider to answer for this week. And thank you so much for your time. God bless and more power to everyone.